Let us shower our thanksgiving to Almighty God.
God has done wonderful things for us.
God's love and blessing have been showered upon us.
Come, let us worship the Lord.
Let us sing songs of joy to God. Let our worship begin.
Let us stand and sing our opening hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, which can be found on page 11 in your hymnal. Join me in our prayer of confession, which is found in your book. Almighty God,
too often we act as if the greatest commandment is to love ourselves. We do not heed the cries of those in need, and we turn our backs on opportunities to serve you by serving others. Forgive us, O Holy One. Help us to truly love you with all our heart, soul, strength, and mind. Let us see and care for our neighbors. These things we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
Friends, hear and proclaim the good news.
In Jesus Christ we are forgiven. Thanks be to God.
Please join me now in the prayer of illumination printed in your bulletin. Shall we pray?
God of the living word, take the words on these pages, take the words that come from our mouths, take all the words we hear today, and make them into your word. No longer words from an ancient book, and no longer just words uttered by us. God, speak, shine, Spirit, come. Amen.
Our Old Testament reading today comes from the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verses 15 to 18, which may be found on page 231 in your Pew Bible. Listen now to the reading of the Holy Scripture. And she said, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do so to me, more also, if even death parts me from you." And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. Our New Testament reading this morning is from the 12th chapter of the Gospel of Mark, verses 28 to 34, found on page 881 of your Pew Bible. And one of the scribes came up and heard them disputing with one another. And seeing that he answered them well, asked him, "Which commandment is the first of all?" Jesus answered, "The first is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord with your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." And the scribe said to him, "You are right, teacher. You have truly said that he is one, and there is no other but he. And to love him with all the heart, and with all the understanding, and with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself, is much more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices." And when Jesus saw that he answered wisely, he said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And after that, no one dared to ask him any question. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
We will now sing the first verse of "Jesus Loves Me" as our youth come forward.
Today, but they didn't. So we're just gonna, Maddie, how old are you? You're 13 and Logan, you're 14. So you guys don't drive yet, right? But I know there's a few out there that do. So you know what one of these are though, right? It's my driver's license. And you probably haven't started studying yet for your driver's license. But those guys out there who have, was that one of the hardest things? Not the hardest, but did you study the hardest maybe for that test and maybe some other tests in your lives? Yeah. You know, I looked up today because I didn't know it at home, but the Department of Revenue has a driver's guide. And I bet that's what you guys studied, right? Did you do the practice test? There's now a practice test online, you know. If that had been there when I was a kid, I might not have failed it the first time, but because Mom wouldn't let Joyce get her license till I got mine, so Joyce really helped me study. But anyway, you have to study this book. It's I would say virtually impossible to pass that test without looking at that book. Would you think that's true? Because there's a lot of stuff in there. Is there a lot that you have to know before you can get this little document to get behind that wheel? There's a lot you have to know. And, I mean, there's every rule out there. Just to get in the car, you have to put your seatbelt on, you know, and you're supposed to check your mirrors. I don't do that all the time, you know, but you even have to get your car inspected before you can really drive it, you know, it has to be legal. There are so many things. What's one of the first things you think about when you're driving a car, though? that you think that is a law? What's one of the things that's obvious? The speed limit? Is that an important thing? Yeah. You know, those lines on the road, they all mean something. They're not just painted there to look pretty, they actually mean something. So there's lots of things that we have to know and to do and to follow. And what happens if you break one of those things, laws? Do you know what happens? You get in trouble by who? The police. Those pretty lights, yeah, they pull you over too. And I'm not going to say I'm immune to that. I've been pulled over probably more times than I like because I run late everywhere I go, so I drive fast. And, you know, it's just part of my life. And sometimes I don't get a ticket, sometimes I do. But they come up, and you guys probably don't know. Have you ever been in a car that's got pulled over? Maybe I shouldn't ask that. There's some cars Have you ever been in a car that's been pulled over for something? No? Well, usually the officer comes over and he's like, Miss Hook. Yes, sir? Do you know why I pulled you over? And I'm just like, I'm probably going a little too fast. And that's usually what it is. So, but what if he came over and he said, Miss Hook, what do you think the most important law for driving is? I would be shocked. I don't know right now. I don't think the speed limit is a good idea. But, you know, I mean, depending on the circumstance, it could be multiple rules that I think is the most important. If my child was in a car wreck, I know by getting hit by somebody who was drinking or something, I would think that that was a pretty important law. So depending on the situation, it could be multiple laws. Well, the leaders of the church kind of did that to Jesus. They kind of pointed a question at him to try to trick him out to say, which is the most important law? And when we think about the law, when they talk about Jesus, we think about the Ten Commandments. But really, in the Jewish law, there were lots and lots of things past 10. In fact, I read something that there's over 630 Jewish laws or something at the time. So Jesus was asked, which one of these 630 laws is the most important? And so Jesus told them that to love God with all of our heart and mind and body and soul is the most important. And the next most important is to love everyone else like we would love ourselves. And I think whenever Jesus said that, if we treat everyone with love and we love God with all of our being, all of the other 630 something become easier. So if we can just focus on loving God and loving other people as much, or if not more than we love ourselves, then that is the way that we need to enter the kingdom of heaven. And God gives us a guide, you know, like the state of Missouri gives us the driver's guide. God gives us a guide too, and with the Bible, that we can use to help us make those decisions. Okay? Let's say a prayer. Dear God, help us to love you with our whole being and to love others more than we love ourselves. Amen.
Just a comment on Joan and the things that she said here. As many of you know, I was a teacher for many years, and I taught high school most of the time. And a lot of those years I taught primarily sophomores in high school. And it's during the sophomore year, primarily, that most people turn 16 and they're interested in getting their license. I was always amazed that all the kids that I had in my class, they could not pass a single history test at all, but every one of them passed that driving test. You know, yeah, it is hard. It's a hard test. It sure is. But, that's sort of the way to go. So I'm going to start not with high school students, but I want to start with college students this morning. And this was a poll taken of American college students, and this was all ages from freshmen through master's degree, master's students in college. And this survey, it actually determined that 74% of all college students that were taking this survey they ranked becoming very well off financially as either the essential or very important, which were the top two categories that they could rank all of these different things in. And they ranked becoming very well off financially. That was the highest rank of anything on the entire survey. It was like a 100-point survey that they looked at, and this was the highest ranking of all. And after I was reading that, I was thinking it's sort of strange that our society teaches our kids that the measure of success is to make a lot of money. You know, to be a successful person is to make a lot of money, to be very well off financially. So it caused me to wonder, and I tried to incorporate it into my message this morning that, well, maybe that's how society, or at least these college students that were taking this survey, that's how they define success, having a lot of money, or being very well off financially. How should we, as Christians, define success? What makes for a successful Christian? And I really think that the message that we heard this morning in the gospel story from Mark that we heard this morning, Jesus, he doesn't leave us as Christians up in the air. He actually gives us a formula for being successful as Christians. Now, the word success is not found in this passage from Mark, of course, but that basically is what he's saying, because this young scribe asked Jesus, what is the most important commandment? And you know, we think, John said the Jews had like 630 rules or something like that, at this particular time. But they also still had the 10 Commandments. And you know, when Jesus was asked, well, what is the most important commandment? Well, first, he fudged a little bit, because he actually gave 2. I don't know if you noticed in this particular reading. But when he was asked what were the most important commandments, he didn't list one of those 10 commandments on the list of 10 commandments that Moses received from God and gave to God's people. No, instead he gave 2 very specific commandments, spoken in a very simple way, hopefully, that we as followers of Jesus would be able to follow to be successful Christians. So our question to ponder this morning as we're listening to this message is, as Christians, how do you define success? Shall we pray? Gracious God, may the words of my lips and the meditations of our hearts and minds be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So let's consider this passage again for just a second in terms of what was it that Jesus actually said here before we go into it at all. If I can get to there. He was asked, which commandment is the first of all? Jesus answered, the first is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. So what exactly is being commanded in these 2 great commandments that Jesus mentions here when challenged, asking what is the great commandment? Well, let me set this up with a story I read a few years back about an American woman who had traveled to England, and she'd gone into a fine restaurant in London, and this woman sat down at the restaurant with the rest of the party that she was eating with. She'd been sitting there for a few moments, and she noticed that at her place setting there wasn't a napkin. And so when the waiter came to the table, the first thing she said was, sir, can you get me a napkin? And the waiter, well, he looked around, and he looked at the woman, and he looked around the table, and he sort of stared off into space, and then he walked away. He was gone for a fairly long time. And he came back, and he handed to the woman, and he said, "Mom, I don't know why you need this, but here it is." And he handed her a baby's diaper. Because that's the English term, that's what they call a napkin, is a baby's diaper in London. So you might want to keep that in mind if you go to a restaurant in London. So it seems that people may use the same vocabulary, but we might be working from different dictionaries with that same vocabulary. And I think we get into these kinds of definition problems fairly often when we read the Bible. Because, you know, the Bible, even the New Testament part, is a very old book. It was written a long time ago, at different times, but even the newest parts of it, written a very long time ago. And people in the time when the Bible was written, they had very different ways of using words and phrases than we do today in the 21st century. So when we hear this passage, and we hear Jesus telling us to love God and to love our neighbor, we assume that we know what Jesus means by the word love. Right? We know what love is and what Jesus means, but in fact, we probably don't. In our culture, the word love is used to describe an emotion or a feeling that we have toward another person or toward others. But the Greek language had other words for that kind of love, for an emotional, a feeling component of love. They actually had a couple of different words for that. They had storge, which meant affection, and of having a feeling of affection for another person. They had the word eros, which meant an actual romantic or physical or sexual attraction or connection with another person. But the word used in this passage today, that word for love was agape. Agape. Agape actually conveys an action, not a feeling, not an emotion, but an action. It's about practical, self-sacrificial care for another person. Whether we like them or not, whether we have any affection for them or not, we are supposed to act in a self-sacrificial way toward the other person. That's what agape is all about. It describes action. It does not describe emotion. It does not describe feeling. So let me try to elaborate on this difference with an example from my own life. You know, most of us remember, you probably remember where you were and what you were doing when the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center were attacked and destroyed by those hijacked airplanes. And you probably remember that over 3,000 innocent men, women, and children died horrible deaths on that 11th day of September. Almost 20 years ago now. I was teaching school on that particular day, and I very distinctly remember one of my co-workers saying that it was difficult to be a Christian on that particular day because she said she didn't know if she could really love those people who had carried out this hijacking and killed all those innocent women, children, and people. And I remember very distinctly, even though I considered myself a Christian, I didn't have a response for her. You know, are we supposed to love those people? But I think this passage, if you understand how Jesus is using the word love, it does give us a way to respond to those who have caused us harm or injured us or hurt us. In light of anyone, whether they're terrorists from 18, 17 years ago or someone close to us that has caused us great pain, we need to be able to say, you know, you're right, no matter how hard I try, I'm not able to sit around and develop some kind of positive feeling or emotion toward people, toward someone that's harmed me. I just can't do that. But that's not what Jesus is commanding us to do. Rather, he's commanding us to act in a loving way toward those people, toward someone who's hurt me very badly. I'm still supposed to act in a loving way. I might not be able to feel good toward someone that's hurt me, but I can still bring them a cup of water if they're thirsty. I can still provide them a coat if it's cold outside and they don't have one. It's an action that Jesus is talking about in this passage, an action, not a feeling. So Jesus' two great commandments that he gives here are not telling us to feel a certain emotion toward anyone, but rather to love God and to love our neighbor through our actions. Through our actions. You know, I've noticed this a lot just in the few years that I've been in ministry, actually, that when people are on their deathbeds and they're thinking about their life and thinking about the regrets maybe that they have in their lives, almost all those regrets have to do with relationships. Have to do with relationships. With their failure to love their friends or to love their family as they would have liked to. And especially their failure to spend more time with their loved ones during their lifetime. You know, why was that job so important to me? Why were all these other things so important to me? Those weren't really important. It was the relationships I have with my family and my friends that are the important things. I think we all understand instinctively that relationships are the central issue of life. Unfortunately, we don't always act that way. We understand that, but we don't always act that way. Jesus, I think, agrees with that assessment with these two great commandments, because both of these commandments deal with fundamental relationships. Our relationship with God and our relationship with our neighbor. If we get this wrong, we've missed the whole point of life. That's what Jesus is telling us here. If you get this wrong, you've missed. You missed it. You know? No matter how successful you might be in other areas, if you get this loving God and loving neighbor wrong, well, you've missed it. That's why these are the greatest commandments. If we get this right, then we've grasped the main issue about what this life is all about. Even if the rest of our life looks a little frayed around the edges, even if we don't have two cents to rub together, that's not important. Jesus says this is what's important. And this first great commandment that Jesus gives us, it gives us a description of 4 kinds of love that we offer to God. 4 kinds of love. They're not 4 separate compartments of who we are, but they're heart, soul, mind, and strength. These are all 4 overlapping ways that we can offer love to God through our action. And when we talk about heart, once again, this is another one of those terms that we sometimes get confused a little bit. When we think of heart, we're loving God with our heart. Once again, we're thinking about feelings. Hey, I gotta love God. I'm loving God with my heart. That's how I feel about God. But people in New Testament times and before, you know where they thought emotions and feelings came from? They came from the guts. They came from the bowels. That's where the feelings came from. When they talked about the heart 2,000 years ago when this was written, when they talked about the heart, they were talking about the decision-making part of who you are. Making the right decisions in your life. So to love God with all your heart is to make the decisions that God is asking you to make in your life, following that manual that Joan told us about, the Bible. When they use the word heart, they really meant will. The part of us that makes choices of decisions. So to love God with all our heart means to make choices that shows God's kingdom is our number one priority in life. Soul, the word soul is used here as well. And when biblical people use the word soul, they meant the whole person. They weren't talking about some disembodied spirit floating off somewhere. They were talking about the whole person when they refer to the soul. We sometimes use that term in that way as well. Like we say, there are 150 souls on that ship that went down. Talking about the entire person, the whole person, not disembodied spirits. That's not what soul refers to. It talks about the whole person. And then they use the term mind. It tells us that we do have to think carefully about what our faithful life as a follower of Jesus should look like. A purely emotional response is not good enough. We've got to rationally, thoughtfully ask the hard questions and think through the issues that we're confronted with in life. And finally, the word strength. Strength just conveys us the idea, hey, this is not going to be easy. It's not easy to love God. It takes effort, it takes discipline, and it takes just that good old stick-to-itiveness. You got to keep trying, you got to keep working. It takes strength to love God. Second command is pretty simple. It's to love your neighbor. And Jesus gives us a guidance. How do we love our neighbor? We love our neighbor as ourselves. Remember again, Jesus is not using a feeling word here. He's using the action word, agape. He's drawing attention to the way that we instinctively care for ourselves. Hey, you know what happens when I get cold? I throw on some warm clothes. I turn the heat up. I try to warm myself up immediately. I don't wait around to do that. Hey, when I start getting hungry, you know what I do? I eat pretty quickly, usually, as quick as I can. I get some food. And I take care of myself. Instinctively, we all do that. Jesus is challenging us to give that same practical care to our neighbors. To our neighbors. We don't have to feel some emotional love for them. He's saying this is the way you act. You practically take care of them just as you take care of yourself. And notice the immediacy of the word that Jesus uses. He doesn't actually say, and I notice Joan did actually say that, love everyone. Jesus doesn't say in this passage, love everyone in the world. Jesus says specifically, love your neighbor. Love your neighbor. In other words, we're to care for those people that we come into contact with on a regular basis. With your spouse, with your children. The people who live close to you. The people you work with. The people who cut your hair. The people who change the oil in your car. Your fellow Christians right here at church. And so on. Those are your neighbors. So your thought has to be, how would Jesus treat them? What would Jesus say to them? What would Jesus do for them? I'm to follow his way of living by treating them as he would treat them. Quite a challenge in this command. So let me quickly summarize here what I've been trying to say. These two great commandments that Jesus gives to us here, I think, are a key to Jesus' entire message. They guide us as to how we live our lives. And we are to live our lives so that our lives demonstrate by our actions our gratitude to God. The God who has loved us so absolutely. They don't refer to our feelings, to our emotions, but to the loving actions with which God calls us to serve God and to serve our neighbors. We are commanded into action to serve God and to serve our neighbors. And these commandments concern the fundamental issue of life, relationships. Relationships with God. Relationships with the other people that we come into contact with. So, back to my original question. What is Christian success? How should Christians be defining success? Well, Jesus told us right here. Jesus said we need to live out our gratitude for God, for the love that God showers on us all the time by loving God with your whole heart, with your whole soul, with your whole mind, with your whole strength, and by loving your neighbor as yourself. Because in the end, that is what will matter. That is how you make a difference in this world. Everything else is really irrelevant. So I pray that your life may be a success by the Christian definition of success. Thanks be to God. Amen. Let us now respond to our words this morning by rising either in body or in spirit and singing our hymn of response, which is Rise Up, O Church of God, which is 433 in your hymnal. Number 433 in your hymnal, Rise Up, O Church of God. So shall we rise up and sing this morning? You may be seated. And please join with me now in our affirmation of faith, that great statement of belief that Christians have used for centuries, the Apostles' Creed, which you find printed in your bulletin this morning. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Ghost, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. He descended into hell. The third day he rose again from the dead. He ascended into heaven, and sitteth on the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in the Holy Ghost, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and the life everlasting. Amen. We now come to that point in our service where we have an opportunity to give of what we have to help further God's kingdom on this earth. So as our ushers come forward and as we hear our special music this morning, be generous in your gifts to God's kingdom. Gracious God, these tokens we bring before you now, so that your people, wherever they are, wherever they may wander in this world, may be touched by your love and by your grace. Use them to further your kingdom on this world. It's in your holy name we pray. Amen. You may be seated. Shall we pray? Holy and gracious God, we give you thanks for the gift of life, for the gift of your Son, for the gift of the Holy Spirit. We ask that you lead us through the trials, lead us through the suffering and sorrow, lead us through the challenges and the struggles, through the tired times and the dark places of this world. And our God, we ask especially that you be with those who are weeping now, for those who cannot sleep, those who have no peace in their lives, those who may be seeking relief, those who are suffering and hurt. We ask a special prayer on all of them. Lord, we ask that you lead us with grace, with love, and with peace. We ask that you fill us with hope, with patience, and with stamina. Transform us in your image, in your Son, and in your name. Transform us to grow, to understand, and to see. Transform us so that we can be made whole. And in wholeness, may we be the hands and the heart of Jesus Christ, who taught us to pray, say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Let us now rise one last time, either in body or in spirit, and sing together our closing hymn, We've a Story to Tell to the Nations. Please note that we are singing the first and the fourth verses only of number 446. So let us now rise together and sing. Kingdom of Love and Light. And let me remind you that next Sunday we have a very special worship service, a service of word and of music. And since she's left, I can mention now that my wife Julia has been putting together, and let me tell you, she spent 5 times as much time on that service as I do on a normal service, putting together all the various pieces of music that will be performed, you're in for a great treat next Sunday to come to that service. As a matter of fact, I might even consider, no. But anyway, yeah, I'm way with it, right? Okay. All right. I hope that you have a great week. I hope you have a great couple of weeks, because I will not return to the pulpit for 2 weeks. And always remember that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, even in sort of a dreary, nasty day like today, God is still with you, because God is always with you. God is always above us. God is always below us. God always goes behind us. God always goes before us. God always stands right beside us, and most importantly of all, God is always inside us as well. So go in peace this day, my friends. Amen.